Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with Weekly Comic Book Roundup. Now, we didn't do one last week because I wasn't feeling well last weekend. And so, because of that, yes, we're going to try and do both this week's roundup and last week's roundup this weekend. Likely, it'll means that basically just today I'll be last week's, next week tomorrow will be next week's. Hopefully, we'll be back on track soon. Anyway, so let's get started. Kicking things off, we've got Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #1. First Sins of Sinister tie-in miniseries. So, Sins of Sinister, basically Sinister's great plot, one of his great plots, has come to fruition. And he has hidden his own genetic code into or elements of his own genetic code into the basically what's used for resurrection purposes, allowing him to basically take control of Krakoa as kind of all of the telepaths in the Quiet Council are basically now Sinister. That's kind of how it started, and just kind of went from there. But yeah, he's also created a means. There's also a gene therapy that's being used on humans to make them basically mutates, but with little touch of Sinister, which has basically allowed Sinister to take over the world. But because you have multiple Sinisters running around, well, yeah, betrayal is a way of life for Sinister, and Sinister has in fact betrayed himself. So, Storm of the Brotherhood is about 10 years into everything. So we open with the fall of Arakko. Storm leading the Brotherhood against what appears to be Sugar Man and a multitude of the Eye member of the Great Ring. Fighting alongside Storm is also Nova. We've also got Sunspot, Thunderbird, Korra, the Burning Heart, Wrong Slide, Death. That's incredibly notable. Another plot point that's brought up is that Mystique and Destiny vanished 10 years previously. It seems Sunspot got killed, but Arakko survives basically in asteroid form. But Destiny has come to speak to Storm, but it turns out it's actually Mystique masquerading as Destiny. And as is shown by when Ironfire stabs her. Ironfire is described as part of the Brotherhood being John Ironfire can transmute his molten blood into any metal known and extrude it in the form of weapons, armor, and even his trademark horns. The rest of her Brotherhood consists of, obviously, Storm, Cable, Korra, WizKid, and Quick. Quick being Lulo Marshall, the fastest being still living, Brotherhood's youngest member. Lighthearted exterior hides a past filled with loss. But Mystique, it basically says, hey, we know where Sinister's lab is with all the Moiras. We can basically prevent him from causing another reset. It's on Muir Island, apparently, so. But it's defended by chimeras. Chimeras are a combination of maggot and marrow. So all the bone shards are basically eeny and meeny. That's that's kind of terrifying. But they get into the lab, and seems a little. There are some issues with that, and turns out that Mystique has taken the form of WizKid and betrays Storm. While all this is going on, Destiny is having tea with Orbis Stellaris. And that is where the issue ends. Now, with these, the Sins of Sinister miniseries, there are three issue minis. Each one, there's a time jump between each issue. With month 1 is year 10. So, Storm of the Brotherhood, Nightcrawler, Immortal X-Men, that's all, not month, but year. Year 10. 10 years forward from Sins of Sinister. Then issue 2 of all 3 of those will be year 100, and then year 1000. So, yeah. Moving on, though, to our next book, we've got Bishop, War College, number 1. So, I mentioned previously through some of the data pages in the Krakoan books that apparently Bishop wants to, or has been advocating for a war college for the X-Men, or for Krakoa. Basically to make, it's kind of a, yes, some of the mutants on Krakoa are part of teams and do superhero stuff often, and so they've got, a degree of practical training. But then you got tons of younger mutants, and mutants who maybe they've been on a team here or there over the years, but they're not frequently doing the superhero bit. And so Bishop wants to be able to train every mutant, or at least the majority of the mutants on Krakoa, in the event of an Orcus attack, or an attack by whomever. Well, this is that comic. Apparently, we open with a letter from Danny Moonstar to Ilya Rasputin. Danny is not confident in Bishop's abilities because he's basically just being a drill sergeant. He's not. To her, he's being a drill sergeant, and it's not really. It's making the students resent him more than respect his training. Ileana is sure that things will be fine, and states that she'll keep an eye out just in case anything goes pear-shaped. Kind of, consider me the vice principal of the War College. And yeah, Bishop is running his charges through constant combat drills. Among the charges we see are Surge, Armor, Amass, and a few others. Basically, they do one simulation and it's like, okay, let's do it again. Run through the whole thing again until you get it so it gets perfect. But the students storm off, not entirely happy with things because of how Bishop's running things. So the students, we've got Armor, who has a psionic exoskeleton armor. Surge, who has electrical absorption capabilities. Ara Charles, flight and psionic energy powers. Cam Long, enhanced senses and reflexes, and Amass. Who has absorption abilities, mind, body, and powers. But presumably only able to absorb mutant abilities. Bishop and Danny have an argument, and Bishop kind of with what Danny tells him, Bishop kind of sees, okay, maybe he is wrong, and he's trying to figure a way to fix things. However, the Fenris twins have returned, and it looks like, as one would expect, they're just as big of pieces of shit as they were when they were done away with recently. The students are some of the students are maybe not, while not fond of how Bishop's running things, at least they see the necessity in it, and are trying to get those that maybe aren't seeing the necessity of how Bishop's running things to stick it out. And we also get basic interactions between some of the mutants, namely seeing a mass and I think armor talking about things, but well, Bishop has a thought on how to make things work a little better, and it's going to require the assistance of another member of the Marauders, Tempo. So he sends a letter is sent from the council to Bishop, explaining that it appears he's already started the War College training with Sturgeon armor. They felt it should officially be given their blessing, with a few caveats and instructions. While the exercise at the Hellfire Gala was no doubt useful, with the world watching, so that does mean that so are Krakoa's allies. Perhaps dressing up the youth as invading Avengers at a time when they need the hero's kinship more than ever was ill-advised. It's not a war game, it's a college. Try to stick with standard goals, training small groups to work together as a team and to be prepared for attacks on Krakoa from any and all outside groups. They'd like to add one more goal: test Krakoa's natural defenses, see if there are any weaknesses. Also, adding the addition of Cam Long and Ara Charles, as well as a mass, they could use the practice and the work. And the final thing, don't break them, train them. Give them some confidence, be a teacher, not just a drill sergeant. But, so the team meets up and they go into a cave, one of the caves on Krakoa's surface, and further and further down. Where they run into Wrong Slide. But Bishop explains that they're going to be in with Tempo they're going to be able to run through simulations multiple times, but in real time, it'll be a short period of time. And Bishop gets to watches and is overseeing the training when Fenris attacks. Turns out Fenris has allied themselves with Orcus. And they've got weapons that use Blight's Will, which can basically which can be detrimental for powered individuals. Bishop, however, disappears during the attack, and the students now have to make their way out. Bishop, however, wakes up in front of the mansion, standing on the ground with Cyclops and Jean over him in their 90s costumes. But this appears to be a alternate version of the X-Men, as Cyclops and Jean are of a much darker skin tone than normal. And that is where the issue ends. Okay, that was an interesting start to things. I kind of figured Bishop's War College was going to be more about kind of showing off some possibilities for other mutant circuits we could potentially see in what remains of the Krakoan Age. But an interesting way to. But instead of having it kind of, yes, we're training the students. Oh, and Orcus attacks. It's on brand. Moving on, though, to our next book, we've got X-Men Legends number 6. This is actually wrapping up the second volume of X-Men Legends. Where we left off, Bishop was telling the tale, telling his origin story, basically, to the X-Men Blue and Gold teams in what to us in the real world would see as the 90s, but for characters in the Marvel Universe would be probably something like, less than 10 years ago. But we got into his plan, and last issue ended with Bishop recruiting Trevor Fitzroy to help. Because, well, they kind of needed him. So, Bishop recruits Fitzroy to his cause, namely because with Fitzroy's teleportation abilities, teleportation portal abilities, he can get the people that are basically living in the camps around the prison to safety, and even saying, yeah, you get to be you'll be free if you help. Turns out the assistant warden has heard about Bishop's plan, and she wants in. After all, if it succeeds, then it's going to be a real black eye for the warden, and well, that means she'll get to take his spot and become warden herself. So. But Bishop also lets some of the people know about the plan, and tries to, bond with them, and show, yeah, I mean, I do want to help. But we see more and more of kind of the build up, and that, yeah, of course, Bishop's allies are betraying him. But the plan gets is triggered early. Fitzroy betrays the assistant warden, taking their life force so that he can open a time portal, and all of the freeing all the mutant criminals. Bishop, Malcolm, and Randall do what they can to get everyone through the portals, but it doesn't seem to actually be as successful as one might seem, and, well, Bishop, Malcolm, and Randall end up in the present, face to face with the X-Men. But as the issue ends, Xavier tells Bishop that he can help him find Fitzroy. And as I said, this is the last issue of this run of X-Men Legends. I do hope we see a return of the series. It's honestly one of the, it's a fun tale. It's a fun book. I like the idea of kind of going into stories that, maybe telling these little between stories for various characters. It's a good. It makes for a nice series. Moving on to our last book for the moment, we've got Namor, the Submariner Conquered Shores, number 5. Where we left off, Namor had seemingly killed Jim Hammond, the Golden Age Human Torch, and Atlantis attacked the robot settlement. We open with a flashback to the war with Cap kind of stating that peace takes work and commitment, with and Jim Hammond echoing this. Bucky and Toro adding that it takes hope. And hope's something they've all got in spades. Though, of course, I don't know what became of Toro, but, well, I think we all know what became of Bucky. And Namor reflects on this as well, stating that Bucky and Toro are gone now, further than he hoped to ever reach them. But Namor realizes his mistake in attacking and seemingly killing Human Torch, but turns out that Hammond's not dead after all. And he apologizes for what he's done as the Atlantean attack intensifies, and Atuma insists that the Human Torch unhand Namor, adding that the machine stronghold will be raised and its leader will surrender to arrest immediately. But Namor's like, no, I got this under control. Turns out Atuma's been sent by the Empress herself, and we also learn that everything that's occurred, especially directly to Namor, was Atuma's machinations. It should also be noted that in the last issue, when there was a terror attack on the oxygenated portion of Atlantis, and Steve Rogers was killed. Namor fights and nearly defeats Atuma until Empress Namorita shows up, killing Atuma herself. Namor says, hey, he admitted being behind all this, but he starts to think maybe his cousin knew and didn't want someone that could expose the truth alive. But Namorita ends up exiling Namor. Namor, Luke Cage, and Jim Hammond, and Frankenstein's creation decide to build something new together. A society for humans and robots. And, anyone else that might want to see a world whose creatures are united. And we get a human Atlantean birth to end the series on. And that is the end of the issue and the series. This was a good series. I'm always a fan of possible future stuff. It's always interesting to read possible future book comics, and then after that possible future in regular series published after this possible future title, seeing those little things that could potentially lead to that particular timeline. But anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.